Holistic Physician podcast may contain adult themes, sexual discussions, and strong language. We want everyone to be educated, but we are intended for a mature audience. Listener discretion is advised. On today's episode, we're talking to holistic sex educator and certified yoni mapping therapist, Freya Graf. You want to hear a joke?
Always.
Always.
What do you call the useless piece of skin on a dick?
A man.
Yes. And now, with love from Huntington Beach, your host, Ashley Weller. I thought it was appropriate.
I feel like
Welcome, fellow humans, to a full frontal episode all the way from across the fucking world. We have Freya joining us from Australia. What part of Australia are you from, Freya?
Hey guys, I'm from Melbourne.
Okay, so for the absolute idiot, I'm raising my hand. Where's Melbourne in relationship to the continent of Australia? I can see the continent in my mind. Okay, so tell me
Totally.
if I'm looking at it, okay,
Yeah.
and I can see it. And I know that Sydney is like in the right-ish side, the eastern side. Where's Melbourne?
We're like down below Sydney, so we're on that really like bottom right corner, just above Tasmania, which is like the little chunk that's kind of broken off.
Yeah.
So I'm in Victoria. It's that little tiny triangle down the bottom there, above Tassie, below Sydney. Yeah.
Have you ever seen it? Kyoka?
No, I actually haven't. I mean, they're over in WA, which I was just living over there, but it's super touristy now. So yeah, I just didn't make it over to Rottnest Island, where I think they're famous for being in abundance.
those are the ones that are always smiling.
The little happy babies.
Yeah.
We love them.
Yeah, they're cute as fuck.
Think if they are so fucking cute. They are really cute. We are so excited to have you on. So I'm part of a group on Instagram called the Vulva Circle, and it's a group of individuals who are really focused on wellness, women's wellness, enjoying sort of like coming together, talking about different sort of products that we're promoting, different kinds of podcasts that people have. Doctors are on, gynecologists, and I saw the Labia Lounge on the Vulva Circles chat, and I was like, hello, what the fuck is that? And do you want to be my friend? And
Yeah.
total Instagram, like high school, hey, you want to be friends? Check this box, yes or no. And I just think it's amazing that we do very similar kind of sex education podcasts, and but across completely across the world. I know that Australia is actually known for a lot of positive sexuality. Before we get into you and what you do you feel like Australia has better sexuality, like laws in place, and better education than America, as far as you know?
Oof. I mean, I wouldn't have thought much. Like when you said Australia is known for being quite sex positive, I was like, what? Really? Like, fuck, it doesn't feel that way over here. But I reckon maybe the difference would be like, because our sex ed is still rubbish. It's, it's starting to take, some positive steps in the right direction. There's more like, I think some laws have been passed recently about like consent education, or not laws, but there's been some funding and stuff, but it's pretty dismal. But I think the difference is you guys have a lot more religion and like hardcore kind of churchy, no sex before marriage, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And we have a bit of that here, but it's nowhere near as hectic as like the full blown purity culture shit that you guys have.
Yeah.
Like people are extreme in America. There's just so much more extremes,
It's been proven time and time again that abstinence doesn't work, but they still push it.
Abstinence only is bullshit. It's bullshit curriculum. That brings me to introducing this wonderful human being who's here with me. So Freya is a holistic sex educator and a host of the podcast called the Labia Lounge. Check it out anywhere you get podcasts. She also does yoni She also does yoni mapping, which we're going to get into in just a moment, with a background of study in yoni massage, facilitation, childcare, yoga teaching, tantric body work, and sacred sexuality. Freya has established her yoni mapping therapy practice in Melbourne, everyone's inner suburbs. She's dedicated to helping people improve their sex lives, overcome their sexual shame, and fall more deeply in love with themselves. I can't think of a better human being to have on What's Your Position than this motherfucker right here. I am so fucking thrilled that you are here. You are teaching women everything I want to teach. I'm a professor, and yesterday I did something called an anonymous Q&A. And they said, one of the people on this little piece of paper, they were like, what do you hope we learned this semester? And I immediately started crying because that's who I am. And I said, I just hope you learned that you deserve pleasure. Everyone in this room deserves pleasure. And I hope that in a safe, sane, and consensual way, everyone deserves pleasure. And I hope that that's what you took from this. And I think that you are probably someone who is giving pleasure to so many people through your coaching and through helping them overcome sexual shame and finding their deep pleasure on a regular basis. And I am in awe of you and what you do. So I'm really thrilled to have you on the episode today. So thank you so much for being here.
Oh, babe, my pleasure. I'm stoked. I think it's a match made in heaven.
I really think so, actually. So you talk a little bit about how you started your journey into being a Yoni queen. And I'm just going to go a little bit into what Yoni is. So Yoni is a Sanskrit word for the vulva or vagina. It roughly translates into sacred cave or sacred place. And Yoni and tantric body work can actually be effective in addressing a lot of different symptoms for a lot of different ailments: stress and tension, depression, fears, phobias, addictions, insomnias, lower body confidence or body shame, menstrual problems, problems with fertility, problems with loss of interest in sex, pain during sex, vaginismus, fear of sex, intimacy, pelvic floor problems. Am I missing any?
I mean, that's pretty comprehensive.
Thank you very much.
Good to me.
And it's really been shown to have a powerful impact, especially on individuals who suffer from sexual shame and also individuals who suffer from sexual trauma. I was wondering if you could tell us, you've said quite frequently in interviews that you've done, that you as a young person and a young adult experienced quite a bit of sexual shame, and some self-confidence and body issues. Have you really ever gotten into like where that stemmed from and how you were able to sort of grapple with the shame that you were experiencing and really come to terms with owning your yoni and owning your body and becoming this powerful presence of pleasure?
Damn. Yeah, it was fucking hard work and it was a long journey. Not gonna lie. There's no quick fix with this sort of thing because we are so utterly steeped in sexual shame and negative conditioning and really fucking unhelpful, archaic narratives around female pleasure, anatomy, sex, periods, all of it, as you know. And it's interesting because I just couldn't pinpoint, one particular sexual trauma event or experience or person in my life that, was responsible for me winding up feeling so drenched in shame and crippled by, sexual hang-ups and fear and insecurity. But I think it's, pretty relatable probably for most people that it comes from so many sources. Like from the second you come out of the fucking womb, well, already you've got intergenerational fucking trauma and shame. And so that's fun. And then on top of that, it's just like, we just get layer after layer of conditioning and lack of education, lack of like positive resources and a positive lens to look at female pleasure and sexuality through, and all the messaging that I got. I grew up in a little country town, pretty backwards, pretty conservative, pretty judgy, a lot of gossip, a lot of like that kind of narrow-minded, shaming, small country town mindset. Yeah. And I don't think you need to be in a country town. Like it was just compounded by that. Yeah. But it's everywhere.
Every message that we get is that the vagina is dirty. the vagina is bad.
Totally.
Like, don't touch yourself.
Totally.
Don't do that. You know, sex is not for you. Sex is for boys. Like, that's gross. You should, like, orgasm. Nobody ever told me about, did anybody ever tell you about orgasms?
And like school and stuff?
Ever? And your mom and anybody never tell you about orgasms? No, fuck that.
Fuck no.
Anybody ever tell you about orgasms?
I don't remember. It was probably my guy friends.
Right.
Like, that's where I would have gotten any of my info.
Well, and then we go and we learn from porn. And when you watch porn, you get this fairy tale of what you think your vulva is supposed to look like and what you think sex is supposed to be, and that you're supposed to enjoy it the moment it goes in, or that it has to have even something that goes in. Like, penetrative vaginal penile penetration is like just the fucking norm. And like, nobody ever talks about pleasure in any other way. Pleasure from just touch, pleasure from kissing, pleasure from massage, pleasure from oral sex. It's all about penetration, penetration, penetration. And it's no wonder women get lost in the fold. Pun in fucking intended. Where's my horn? Like, I understand why there is so much sexual shame surrounding all of this. And so what made you want to be a warrior for women? What made you want to be a warrior for the vagina?
Warrior for the vagina. So I decided I wanted to be a vag warrior because I set out on my own journey to heal my own sexual shit. I was totally fucking crippled. I was like so self-conscious that I couldn't be naked around a partner, even if I'd been in a relationship for years. I would like shower with them with fucking bathers on. I wouldn't take my bra off during sex. I didn't want them to like touch me anywhere because I was like so repulsed by my own body. And so, of course, like that sort of thing was really getting in the way of true intimacy and rewarding sexual experiences and relationships. Like, it was not a healthy place to be. And I recognized that. And the longer I lived with it, the older I got, the more experiences I had with partners, I just was like, I've got to fucking sort this out. This is not cool. I'm not okay with this. It's not sustainable. I don't want to live like this. It's horrible. And so I started working on it for myself. And it wasn't like I just decided I wanted to do it as my career, but it was more of a natural progression towards that. As I learned more and more for myself and healed my own shit, I was like, whoa, this is actually so fucking powerful, and it has transformed my life in so many ways, and this is important. And the more people I spoke to, the more I realized
so many it's so relatable.
Everyone's got stuff. Everyone's got stuff around sex, and it's not easy. It's not easy for most people. And so I got really passionate about it, and I was like, I can fucking help other people with this because it's had such a big impact on me. And I'm so grateful that I like took that leap and that I met people along the way that made it safe and accessible and possible for me to delve into that territory, because it was fucking terrifying. Like, it was such an edge for me, and it was a really long, slow kind of journey to like remove all the layers of shame and fear and insecurity, but so worth it. And so that kind of just made me get more and more invested in it as like a body of work, and then, you know, start learning and training and helping other people. And it just sort of just kind of happened, you know.
Did you get a yoni massage and think to yourself, I have to do this, I have to become certified in this, I want to do this for other people?
No, not really. You'd think so. I didn't get a yoni massage until quite far along my exploration with all this. And I actually started out giving lingam massage and like prostate massage for men. So I was doing sort of this tantric body work for men way before I was doing it for women. And then it actually just happened that I was in like a practitioner training and we were practicing body work, and there was an uneven number of like males and females. So I got paired up with a female and I gave my first yoni massage. And I was like, wow. It was like, no, I'd already gotten one and it was fine, but I was like, it was fine, but I wasn't like, that was life-changing. I was still working on other pieces for myself. Yeah, but I do like massage for me is so massive. Like I find it just to be really, really fucking powerful and potent because it helps my nervous system just drop into like a whole different level of relaxation and surrender. And that is very soothing. And then, yeah, the physical touch definitely helped with trauma release and, I guess like connection to my body. But it was just a bunch of different stuff. I think I actually wanted to do the yoni massage more, not from receiving it and being like, wow, that was incredible, even though it was, but yeah, from giving it and seeing the results and the kind of responses from the people I was giving the bodywork to. And they were so grateful and giving me all this amazing feedback. And I was like, oh, maybe I'm good at this. Maybe I could do this. And at that point, I was pretty sick of working with men because, I mean, it's very tricky to like market yourself.
Well, I was
doing
just going to ask
dick
you,
rubs, you know, like people wanted the rub and tug. They didn't want what I was offering.
Right. Which is this tantric, deep, like sensual release of like how to tap into pieces of yourself that deserve pleasure and how to find pleasure in your body. Lingam massage, for individuals who don't know, is actually a tantric form of massage for penis owners. And it is a massage of the groin, pelvic, and the shaft of the penis, and also a prostate massage. So you're doing these dick rubs. Fantastic phrasing, by the way. How difficult was that to navigate and not have people, or did you have people assume you were a sex worker?
Yeah, all the time. And that's why I just got pretty jack of it because, you know, in the sacred sexuality or tantric space, I was able to find people that understood what it was about. They weren't there for an ejaculation or a release. They were there to like, you know, learn how to be vulnerable, learn how to be penetrated, learn how to release trauma and shame and use it as a de-armoring practice. And it was all very respectful and above board. But then as soon as I started trying to like market myself or find clients out in the world, it was like, oh, this is so tricky to differentiate this from sex work or like a rub and tug. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like super respect sex workers, but like that just wasn't what I was offering. And it got exhausting having to like screen every client and like sift through so many creepy messages, so many like, you know, it was just like constantly being objectified. Even if you thought you could kind of trust someone and you're on the same page and they seemed okay. And then they would rock up and they would still be like offering to pay me extra money to like jerk them off at the end. And I was like, oh, for fuck's sake, like this is making me feel shitty and it's making me hate men. And I didn't want that. So I was like, I could take it or leave it. I'm kind of done with this. I'm going to work with women. They're way safer.
I'm going to go map some vaginas. I gotta go. Yeah. Tell me, if you could, it's on your website, which by the way is one of the most comprehensive and beautiful websites. I think it's absolutely fantastic. Your website really goes into a lot of detail as to what will happen at a yoni massage session. So can you break it down for the listener? What's going on? I mean, obviously you're talking to the clients beforehand. You're getting consent, for them to be naked and for you to touch them. But what is taking place during the yoni massage in kind of like a step-by-step process, if you don't mind?
Yeah, totally. So every session's a little bit different, but I have a general kind of like structure that I follow. And I guess I'll give you the rundown that I give to clients before I do the session so they know what to expect. So I usually pre-frame it by explaining that like first we're going to have, you know, a pot of tea, we're going to have a chat. I'm going to I guess figure out where they're at, what they're struggling with, what I might be able to help support them with. There's like a sex education piece, there's some coaching, there's some talk therapy, and that's to kind of like develop some trust and safety and rapport before we move towards any physical touch, because that's so important. It's like a massive thing to trust someone to you know, to enter that space with you, who you've just met, you know. So then we move to body work, and I do a full body kahuna massage first as a way of relaxing them, helping them just feel really like honored and respected and safe drop into the parasympathetic nervous system, because that's so important in terms of like, you know, safety in the body. A lot of people coming have, you know, had sexual trauma and they're wanting to work on that. So like it's very, you know, geared towards consent, safety, gradually easing them into the experience in a way that's not going to like trigger a trauma response or like hijack their nervous system in any way. And then if they're feeling comfortable, and I've got their permission, we do some external vulva massage just of the outside, you know, the labia, clitoral hood, perineum, all of these areas. And I start giving them a bit of a guided tour as well. Because
so
a lot of people don't know
their anatomy. Yeah, you're explaining their anatomy to them and where the clitoris, the crura runs down the labia and where the clitoral hood is and where, and explaining to them like if they're, are you having them talk back to you and say that feels pleasurable or I don't like that, or are they like allowed to sort of help you draw the map, I guess?
Of course. Yeah. It's a collaboration. So we're co-creating the experience. I want them to feel very much in control and as though they're contributing. So I'll be checking in with them pretty regularly and asking them, you know, what are you noticing? What experiencing, like, what sensation are you experiencing? Are there any like memories or emotions that are surfacing? And that's not for diagnostic purposes. It's more just to like get them into the habit of being super present with what they're feeling and experiencing, because so often we can dissociate, or we can, you know, like we're used to being touched on the genitals in like maybe like pap smear or a very medical setting or a very sexual setting. So like often people check out and go up into the head because they're like, oh, this is unpleasant. I'm just want to get this over with, like for a pap smear, for example.
I get sugared. I get like my whole everything Brazilian sugared, and it's kind of like waxing. I don't know. I'm telling you, like you don't know what fucking sugaring is. Jesus Christ.
Dude, I didn't. I didn't know what that was.
Shut up. Really?
Like, what are you?
You're like
melted sugar and it's like sticky. Okay. Yeah.
It's like a sugar ball, and it's like it's holistic, and it's from like Egypt and like all the Egyptian, and I'm going to have a sugar lady come, my sugar lady's going to come on here, but it's more, like eco-friendly and like better for,
hurt a little bit less.
It hurts less than waxing. It's not hot. It doesn't burn you. It's like all natural. So I get my vag sugared every 6 weeks, and I'm just spread eagle, the whole time. And she's like moving I'm like spreading it like it's roast beef. She's moving my labia from side to side. She's picking up my labia and pulling this one over so that she can get the hairs on. And then I have to roll over and she has to spread my ass cheeks and sugar on the inside of that. And you're right. I completely check out, and I don't even take into consideration someone is touching all of my parts. She sugars my clit, and I'm just like, they call that the horseshoe of death, because that's literally the worst spot to get sugared. It's not fun at all.
Oh my God.
So I check out because it's not a fun or pleasurable experience in any way. So this is like completely making sense to me.
Yeah, that's it. Like so often we're just checking out, we're wanting to get something over with because it's pretty uncomfortable or unpleasant, or we're ashamed or embarrassed or self-conscious. And then in a sexual setting, it's like maybe it's not unpleasant, but there's still a whole lot more going on in terms of like sexual dynamics and energy, you know, relationship dynamics, overthinking, or like, you know, performance anxiety or self-consciousness about what we look like or we smell like or we taste like. So like the genitals, you know, when they're being interacted with or engaged with by somebody else, there's usually a fuckload going on that stops us or makes it difficult for us to be really present and actually feel what we're experiencing, notice what's going on, potentially enjoy it or let pleasure, you know, expand. So these sessions are really interesting in that it's a very like therapeutic and neutral space. It's not sexual, it's not medical, it's kind of in between, and people can actually just like observe what's happening in their body, see what it feels like when I'm massaging, you know, their left inner labia versus their right inner labia, or like where there's numbness, where there's tingling, where there's pain, where there's emotion, where, you know, they feel like there's a blockage or tension. And so I'm chatting with them as I go to kind of like get them into the habit of just paying attention to that and having an experience of their genitals that they've never had before, and being able to notice things that they wouldn't be able to notice before because they're so preoccupied with other thoughts or whatever, or they're just checked out. And so that in itself is like pretty unique. And then we move towards the internal vaginal mapping and massage if they're comfortable with it. And again, I'm checking in, I'm asking them for permission, making sure they feel really safe and comfortable. And I don't like push my way in or force my finger in or any of that. I literally I pop my gloves on, I hold a finger at the entrance and I just get them to breathe and maybe make some sound and just wait for their tissues to soften around my finger or for their pelvic floor muscles to draw me in. Mm-hmm. And sometimes that doesn't happen and then we don't do the internal. That's their body being no thanks, no deal. But usually by that point, they're so relaxed, they feel so safe and respected and they're curious and their body is yeah, cool, I'm down for this. And so we do some internal massage. I'm using pelvic release techniques to kind of let go of tension, bring more circulation and blood flow to the area, which kind of translates to more sensation and more activation. We're creating a mind-body connection through presence and touch, because so many of these areas inside the vagina will just never have been touched before. They don't even know they exist. There aren't neural pathways to these places because we treat the vagina like a dick-shaped tube. And if you're lucky, maybe you'll get the G-spot played around with, but other than that, it's up and in, thrust away. There's not a whole lot of intentional massage that goes on of the sacrum, the tailbone, the walls and the back and all these other areas inside, which all, really benefit from touch and massage and have the potential for pleasure, but they're basically asleep in there because they never get interacted with.
Are you able to show if they're really wanting to know where, I don't want to call it the G-spot because it's not my favorite term. Because
the urethral sponge.
The back side of the clitoris, the back of the clitoris. Are you able to show people where that's located or help them find it so that they know what it feels like when it is being stimulated?
Yeah, that's part of the session. I make sure I do a bit of a guided tour of the internal pleasure anatomy and some of the hot spots that, often store a fair bit of emotion or trauma or tension. So the G-spot or, AKA the urethral sponge and the A-spot, the cervix. Mm-hmm. I'm touching on all these areas to let them know, this is where this is. This is how you can find it yourself. This is what it feels like. This is the potential. Because as you know, in a session like this, there's not necessarily going to be any arousal or sexual energy. Therefore, they're not going to be engorged. Therefore, that erectile tissue isn't going to be feeling all sensational and delicious. Sure. It might feel a bit bladdery or they need a wee when I'm pressing on, the G-spot, A-spot area. Yeah. So I'm kind of showing
when you go to the gynecologist and they're feeling up your ovaries and you're I'm going to pee on your fingers. I literally need you to take those out. Yeah. Take it out.
Yeah. So it's not quite that intense. I'm pretty conscious of not making people feel like they're going to piss all over me. But yeah, I'm showing them where it is and I'm explaining that, in this session, it might feel like this, but if you were in a sexual setting and you had enough arousal and engorgement going on, it would feel amazing. And it's worth persisting with. So I'm kind of giving them a bit of a sex ed lesson, a bit of an anatomy lesson, also creating a safe space for them to really have some big emotional releases if that is what arises, because often it does. With this area of the body, it's very, very sensitive to trauma and shame and emotions that kind of get tucked away and stored in the body. And so often that can translate to physical manifestations of numbness, tension, pain, scar tissue,
I was just talking
inability
about
to orgasm.
The psychosomatic pain of vaginismus that happens when you really think that sex is going to hurt and your vaginal muscles close and do not allow anything inside, and sex is painful and sex shouldn't be painful. We should be able to teach people how to have pleasurable sex. And I think, Yoni, that's incredible that you are giving this lesson to people.
Everything that you're saying, it's I've never had anything that I can relate to, what you're talking to I completely understand being so mindful of your body and having that be a way to kind of like you said, just mount out and just understand what the fuck's going on down there.
I feel like
it would be such a fucking cool experience.
I feel like I've never done that to the inside of. I feel like I'm pretty aware of the outside of my body, the outside labia.
I've definitely taken a mirror down there.
Definitely given myself a drive down there, right? Multiple times, but never done it on the inside. And I think that that's really fucking important.
And like not in a way that's
not sexual
or like medically. Like the thing I'm thinking about is like putting in a cup and stuff like that.
Oh,
like a menstrual
for
cup.
sure,
Like,
or a NuvaRing.
Yeah, I'm pretty familiar with the inside of my body because of that. Yeah, it's in such a medical setting.
Yeah, and not in a mindful, like you said. Yeah,
and that's like super common. Most people are like, not familiar with their internal landscape, and they've either never really thought to do it, or they've like had a little go and been like, oh, I don't really know what I'm doing, whatever, or they're fucking terrified. Like so many people are super confronted by the inside of their vagina, and like most women masturbate or self-pleasure purely externally, like because the clit, the head of the clit, easy to find. We know where it is. It's pretty like wham bam, thank you ma'am. We know that we're going to get like this intensity of sensation. Internally, totally different story, and it takes a lot more like practice and learning and teaching the body to feel pleasure and creating neural pathways to pleasure that, allow us to access pleasure through penetration. And we often just like don't even bother. And also because there's so much like potential pain and tension and discomfort from trauma and shame and like negative sexual experiences, that is all kind of like hiding away inside. So it's very confronting, and it doesn't feel safe for a lot of people to explore internally. And people just don't know where to start. They don't know what to do, And that's why I made my online course, which teaches you how to do your own yoni mapping and yoni massage and de-armoring.
We are. What do you do when you are? Well, first I have a question, and then I have a question, and then I have a question, and then we're going to take a break.
Right.
How do you wrap up the session? What is like the aftercare for your yoni massage?
So after I've done the internal work, I'll kind of withdraw, give them a little bit of time in their own space, maybe do a guided meditation, something like that. And we'll have a little debrief, and I give them, based on what we've spoken about, and what they might find the most helpful, I give them a couple of home play practices to take home with them and do in their own time at home to kind of continue the work that we've started. And I send a follow-up email with like those resources and home play suggestions. And my door's always open for them to have a little chat a few days later, or if anything arises after that, because it needs to feel like a really held container. There's often big things that arise after a session that may not have surfaced in the actual session, but then days, weeks later, they're kind of still unraveling and stuff's shifting and releasing. And so, we can have chats after that. I do like to work with people for multiple sessions if I can, just because we can kind of go a bit deeper each time. And then I know that I'm not just having one session and then they're off out in the world alone. But I try to just like make myself available and send them some follow-up stuff to, make sure that they're feeling supported in the aftercare phase.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask you, I lied. I have 2 more questions, but I'm going to have you answer them when we come back from break, because I want all of the listeners to come back. So my first question is, have you ever worked with someone who does the yoni mapping, does the coaching sessions, but is still unable to experience sexual pleasure, even through working with you? And how do you help them cope with that? Or what resources would you offer them beyond yoni mapping and beyond becoming comfortable with their sexual selves? And second question, have you ever had anybody orgasm while you were giving them a yoni massage? And how do you deal with that while it happens? So we're going to answer both of these questions when we come back from break. We are also going to talk a little bit about not only your online coaching for women, but I'm super fascinated about your online coaching for men, because I think that we need to make all men labia linguists. I think they all need to understand their way around a labia. And I think that you are doing that one coaching session at a time. So we're going to be right back, everybody. Join us.
More at risk. somebody. Come on.
Is your bedroom getting boring? Does your sex life feel stale? Or are you just looking for a fun date night activity? Aria has got you covered. Aria's carefully cultivated Choose Your Own Adventure box is like no subscription service you have ever encountered. You and your partner fill out a sexy questionnaire to help the intimacy experts tailor your boxes to your comfortability, range of sexual likes and dislikes, and create specialized scenes for both of you to enjoy. Each box is hand curated with high quality items to enhance your sexy scene and includes Spotify playlists, provides ideas for starting the scene, and encourages you to have boundaries, safe words, and aftercare. And throughout the process, your personal concierge will text you, email you, and get you excited for your sexy night in. Whether you're looking to increase your kink or just become closer to your partner, Aria has a scene for you. Visit aria.fyi.com and use our code WYP15 at checkout for 15% off your first 3 months and try on a new side of your sensual self. That's WYP15. Aria, your playful mentor for all things sexy.
Dopamine is synthesized from tyrosine, a basic amino acid, and is stored in synaptic vesicles. Receptor stimulation of the postsynaptic membrane sends the impulse to the next neuron. Dopamine. 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 Dopamine.
Welcome back, fellow humans. We are here with Freya, and she is talking to us about yoni massage, and we are going to get into more about her coaching and her podcast, the Labia Lounge, here in just a second. Before the break, I asked you 2 questions. The first was, have you ever had multiple sessions with an individual who you were trying to help overcome an issue with pleasure or enjoying, their body or understanding how their body works, and they just could not get past something, and what are the resources you were able to offer them? And the second question was, have you ever had somebody orgasm while you were giving them a yoni massage session, and how do you as a practitioner handle that?
Good questions. Well, first question. I've pretty much never had that happen. I've always managed to help people at least begin to experience more pleasure and sort of sexual arousal than they had before. There are occasions where, maybe they can orgasm with themselves, but not a partner. They still can't quite get over that hump. But it's usually the people that are, I don't want to put the blame on clients, but when they don't actually do any of the homework that I set them, or they don't do the guided practices, or they don't actually put in, they're very heady and they like to learn about the things, but then they don't actually put them into a practice in an embodied way and integrate it. And so of course, this is such a embodied and practice-based thing. You need to be it's committed, very much, and it's
very much like therapy. If you're going to therapy and your therapist says, okay, here are some ways that you can add, more peace to your life outside of coming to therapy once a week. You can journal, you can meditate, and you continue to go to therapy, and your therapist is like, okay, you're not moving forward. Are you doing the things? And you're like, no, I just want to go to therapy and have the therapy work. So
fix me.
Yeah, exactly. Why aren't you fixing me? I don't want to fix me. You do it. So that actually makes a whole lot of sense. But I was hoping you were going to say that most of the time with this sort of self-exploration and guided tour, you're able to really help individuals navigate their genitalia, because I feel like once you know where everything is located and what its purpose is, you don't know. When I teach human sexuality and I show them a 3D full-size model of the clitoris, and they realize that it actually has bulbs and legs that extend into the labia. Every human being is like, that is my favorite thing that I've ever learned. I did not realize that the labia had nerve endings, I didn't realize that it felt good. I didn't realize that that was a place that could be engorged with blood. I didn't realize that that was analogous to the shaft of the penis. Like these mind-blowing things that we're teaching people, and adult human beings, you and I, adult humans who don't know their own genitals because they're tucked up inside. And there is something to be said for that. You know, somebody who has a penis, their genitals are on the outside of their body. They're very familiar with it. They bathe it. They make little mohawks out of the pubic hair. They name it. They can put little googly eyes on it.
Stop sharing our secrets.
I'm sorry. But for as far as people who have a vulva, it is hard to see. Like you're not getting a mirror and going down there. That's a really difficult area to know and to understand. Especially internally.
I can't put a mirror inside myself.
No.
And then see.
No. And no one's putting on a headlamp and spreading you open and going, I can see the cave walls.
I mean, I have definitely ordered a speculum online and got a mirror and a torch and had a little look at my cervix, but not your average person, you know, doing that. So yeah, I totally agree. And it's tough because like,
I was gonna say my girlfriend in high school stole a speculum from the doctor, and she was like, I'm like, yes.
And you in high school?
Oh yeah.
And you could see her cervix?
Yeah.
You just
I had the
Dr. Weller?
Wow.
That's
awesome.
And I'm let's do that again.
He's an anomaly. The man is an
advanced.
anomaly. He's
advanced.
He is. Yes. He's adept for sure. So okay, second question.
Okay. Yeah. So what was the second question? Yeah. I mean, it's pretty rare. It's very rare that someone would orgasm in a session because we're not aiming for that. That's not the goal. And, you know, as most people with vaginas know, like you don't often just have an orgasm on accident, you know, like it takes a little bit of like,
I know.
Yeah. And because I'm not like dedicating, you know, time and focus to like the kind of rhythmic and pleasurable sort of stimulation, and they're not in a position where they're feeling like aroused and there's no sexual energy running between us. It's just super rare that would happen. Sometimes, like very occasionally, someone's like very, very activated. They've got a really like pleasure-filled pussy, and, you know, there's so much relaxation and safety that we've built up that by the time we get to the internal yoni work, they do feel a lot of pleasure, but it's usually not like a peak orgasm, you know, that builds and then explodes. It's more like waves of pleasure, and that's like absolutely fine. Like I don't shame it or wrong it at all. I'm not, you know, trying to make it happen or encouraging it per se. I'm more just like letting it be and being like, okay, wow, there's some pleasure there. That's great. Like if you feel comfortable, just like breathe into that. See if you can, you know, refrain from contracting and trying to squeeze out an orgasm or like go for gold, because sometimes when the pleasure starts coming in and the arousal's building, people have that tendency to like start, you know, kind of contracting and their breath gets like more shallow and fast, and they're heading towards trying to make, you know, this peak orgasmic experience happen. And I try to just encourage
what they're trying to do is engage in what their brains and what their bodies are like, this is what's normally supposed to happen. And we don't necessarily teach people very often about edging and about how you can actually control your orgasm and experience pleasure without going over the waterfall or going to the point.
It doesn't need to be the goal.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
But
exactly.
it is part of
and I think like, yeah, well, also like a lot of people, their orgasm has become really performative. It's more about the other person. And I've heard of this sort of thing happening in other sessions with practitioners, who don't have a lot of integrity maybe, or they've got a bit of ego involved and they are almost kind of trying to make an orgasm happen, and they want to like give that person that experience to kind of cap off the session or something. I've heard about people feeling pressured to have an orgasm in a session for the sake of the practitioner, and going into like this sort of like ease and appease nervous system response that they've had in sexual dynamics, where they're like, oh, okay, this is familiar. Someone's like hammering away at my G-spot. I guess the thing that it is expected of me next is to like go into pleasure. And they've faked orgasms in a session with a professional.
Oh, that's
and then
terrible.
Obviously felt like heaps of shame afterwards. And, you know, if they have had an actual orgasm, still having like that shame hangover afterwards, which is the complete opposite of what we're trying to do. So
Absolutely.
I'm very mindful of that. If there's pleasure arising, or if there seems to be some kind of like, you know, energy building in a client, like I'm always like monitoring that, making sure they are comfortable, they feel safe, they're not trying to make anything happen, they're just like allowing the pleasure to like blossom and unfold, and maybe directing it with some breath, keeping on like reminding them to relax their muscles rather than contracting. And then I'll kind of probably move away from that area and mix up what I'm doing so that I don't tip them over the edge, because I don't want them to feel like shit afterwards. Like some people would be fine with it, some people wouldn't. A lot of people who come to see me are in a delicate space with this stuff, and I just really don't want to trigger or re-traumatize them. So pleasure is totally okay, but it's not the goal, and it's quite rare for that to happen in a session with me, at least.
I love that with you. So that gets me to my next question, which is I looked up because I was going to do my normal stat of the day. Sorry, listeners, you don't get one because I couldn't find shit on this. I could not find statistics on yoni massage. I could not find statistics on tantric sex. I could not find, I was even going to say, guess how many yoni massage therapists there are in California. I'm going to fucking tell you, there's one. And she's in San Francisco. And and then there's one in Arizona. Yeah. And there's no one else who is on the first 7 pages of Google when I type in yoni massage near me, because what I'm getting is sex workers. And I don't want to go. If I wanted to go to a sex worker to have an orgasm, I would. If I want to go and have my yoni mapped and have like my body explored and have the inner workings of my body explained to me, that is something that I don't think I could find here in California. And you were speaking earlier at the break to that there might not be some like super legit practitioners, and that not a lot of people get this kind of training that you received. How can someone find a yoni practitioner near them and know that they are legit and that they are the real deal and they are certified and they've gone through the extensive training that you've gone through?
That's really tough because there isn't many of us, and it's very unregulated. Like the industry is super unregulated. A lot of practitioners will call themselves yoni massage practitioners after doing like a 2-day workshop, or like maybe, you know, an online thing with like 3 or 4 days of actual in-person hands-on practice, which in my opinion is just not enough. They're also not trauma informed. And there's such variation in like how people are teaching it. So there's like a real kind of like pleasure centric, tantric, erotic bodywork focus that some people, you know, work by, which I don't think would be very helpful for people who have trauma or want more of an educational therapeutic experience. And then there's people that, you know, work on that opposite end of the spectrum, but less of them. You know, I haven't found many practitioners that have the same approach as I do. And the training that I did only ran once. And now all of the trainings on offer are just very, in my opinion, they really fall short. And it's quite irresponsible that people are like, you know, training up these practitioners and sending them out into the world with fuck all experience or like, you know, trauma training. And there's not Yeah, there's not a lot. I mean, so the modality that I practice is accredited and registered with the International Institute of Complementary Therapies. And so we have like a code of ethics. We had a really stringent training. We had to, jump through hoops where we are able to get insured as practitioners. So it's like pretty above board. It's pretty legit. Oh, yeah. But that's pretty much the only one that's like that in this space. I would say like sexological body workers, because they've like done a degree and that is like really legit. That's probably the closest thing that's kind of similar. So maybe searching a sexological body worker rather than yoni massage, or searching. I mean, it's tricky because then if you go into the pelvic release massage space, that's also really rare and it's also a lot more clinical. So if you want that middle ground, it's tough to find someone. And I've got like a blog post about, what to look out for, how to kind of find and choose a practitioner that I can send you the link for if that's helpful. But unfortunately, it's just really tricky to find one. And, like I'm the only one in Melbourne that's had that level of training. And the woman who created the modality that I practice and that trained me had a background in sexological bodywork, in Gestalt therapy, in tantric bodywork, and so kind of rolled all of those things into one, which is why I think it's got that unique kind of combo. Yeah. But I don't know what to tell you. It's tricky. I mean, maybe I need to just fucking fly over and do a tour where you are one day. Like if there was enough interest.
I can get a group of people who would absolutely be down to have you do sessions for them. And I would Betty Dotson the fuck out of this and get a group of women who would all benefit from a yoni massage and yoni mapping. Like, I think that would just be what a fucking workshop that would be. And then talking about our experiences. Let's fucking do it.
We could do a workshop. We could do some kind of like event. And then I could also do some sessions on the side. I mean, as long as like it's sort of financially worth the flights and the time off, I'm so down for that. I'd love to come over. But for those that can't access, because the other thing is like it's pretty expensive. Depending on how you look at it.
How much is a session in Australian money?
So in Aussie dollars, to do a session with me, which they're minimum 3 hours, is $490. So, if you break it down per hour, because there's a lot of like preparation and there's the aftercare, it doesn't actually work out to like be that much, but that's a chunk of money and a chunk of time to commit, to take like 3 or 4 hours out of your day to drop this cash on this like quite unknown modality. And because of that, I realize it's not accessible to everyone, plus the fact that there's hardly any of us.
I need you to hold on one second. Hold the fuck on. You just said 400 and how much? 90?
90. Yeah.
Okay. That's $325 US.
About. Yeah.
Okay. The two yoni massage individuals that I found, one in San Francisco and one in Arizona, charge $1,000.
So it's going to be. So the great thing is, if you did come out here,
you should raise your price.
You could triple your price.
What the fuck?
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Just be like, maybe it will be financially worth it.
I thought you were going to say close to that, like 1,000. That should have been my fucking stat of the day. Yeah. Oh my God. So in addition to your yoni mapping, you also do coaching and you do online coaching as well. And we have a treat for the listener. So at the end of the episode, we're going to give you a code so that you can take a course with Freya from her workshop. And we're going to give you a code so that you can get a discount. Ayo. You put horns. So let's go ahead and talk a little bit about your coaching. And I want you to focus, I want you to tell us about the women's coaching, but I really want you to tell us a lot about why you decided to coach men too. And what are you coaching them on? Are you coaching them on women's sexual pleasure or their partner's sexual pleasure? Or are you coaching them on their own pleasure?
Both. Yeah, it started out, I was just doing the coaching for women. And then I was just noticing, like, you know, there's only so much I can do with these clients if they have like a male partner that just isn't on board and isn't like willing, or like a lot of the time the women in these partnerships were like really committed to the self-development and the growth and doing the work. And they were like taking everything I was kind of coaching them with on board and trying to bring it into the relationship. And they were meeting this resistance or like, I guess like apprehension from their partners because, you know, the male partner would start to feel intimidated or threatened by all of this like growth and all this new stuff that the woman was bringing in, and they would feel very insecure and very inadequate. A man's like sexuality into question or his performance as a lover. Holy fuck. Yeah. The ego is like,
you know what?
It's the most fragile thing. Yeah. Not a Fabergé egg, not a ceramic pot from Mesopotamia. No.
It's the male ego.
It's the male fucking ego. And it gets broken.
I can totally imagine how difficult that would be, like trying to work on yourself in a relationship and your partner is just giving you fucking nothing, just a brick wall. Like it really takes two to tango, you know?
And like to come home and say, I'm ready to have an orgasm, and have them go, what do you
Cool, I'm playing a video game.
Right. Or I thought I gave you orgasms. Like what do you mean you learned where I can show you where your pleasure is. Like you don't need so I can completely understand. That's my guy voice, by the way.
Great.
So do you usually coach couples, or have you like coached men who aren't in a relationship, who are just learning how to be better lovers?
Totally, yeah. So at the moment, I'd like to go into coaching couples in the future. I don't have any specific training around couples coaching though. So I usually, work with the individuals, and then I find that really helps the relationship anyway. And with men, like, I'll work with people that are single. It's pretty much always hetero men that I work with, just not, that just kind of works out that way. And I think because a lot of what I coach them on is around female pleasure and how to be a better lover to a woman, because like that's where my expertise lies. Like that's my wheelhouse. Yeah. But I also, find myself kind of talking to them about like a lot about, like their relationship with masculinity and the ego that they hold around their ability to please their partner or their sexual prowess, and what that means about their manliness or manhood or whatever. And, there's so much performance anxiety. There's so many difficulties with like erectile dysfunction, premature ejaculation, porn addiction, things like that. So men have like their own kind of bag of difficulties that all kind of stem from the patriarchy, just as like we do, but it's just two sides of the coin. And so, it's different for client to client, but I think like men enjoy working with someone who specializes in women's pleasure, at least hetero men do, because they can learn so much, and that helps them feel more confident. It helps them be like more across it and just know what they're doing, and therefore feel better within themselves. They feel less, pressure around performance. And I think it just helps them feel better about themselves and therefore be better lovers, because they're more willing to listen and to take on board feedback, and rather than letting that dent their ego or mean anything about them as men or lovers, they're actually like, I try to help them just embrace any feedback or guidance, because it's an opportunity to learn and get better and better and connect more deeply with their partner and create safety and, make their partner's pleasure not about them and like what a fucking king dick they are for like making her come. It's like, so it's a big topic, but does that kind of answer your question?
Yeah. Is there like, are you explaining women's anatomy to these men and like explaining where specific pleasure parts could be located, and like different techniques as far as like non-penetrative techniques that they might be able to incorporate into their lives so that they can pleasure their partner in a way that's maybe less about them and their shaft getting fucking stroked, and more about like, let's focus on both partners' pleasures, like one at a time. Like, let's figure out how your partner enjoys pleasure, and then we can figure out how you enjoy pleasure. Is there like,
Absolutely.
How many coaching sessions would you normally have with a guy?
So I have 3-month and 6-month packages with fortnightly sessions. So it's either like 6 to 12 sessions. Those are like the two kind of like main options. And generally, like in that time, we can cover heaps of ground. You know, I also have a bunch of resources and like, you know, training videos and things that I can send them because I've been kind of wanting to create an online course for men. So that's kind of in the works. But yeah, I'm definitely teaching them all about female pleasure anatomy, all about how feminine sexual energy works and how best to approach a woman's body. Communication is a massive one that I find myself like teaching on a lot because so much of it's like, it's pretty much never about your technique or about the moves or like the spot that's going to fucking get the pleasure happening. It's like really about your ability to communicate maturely and clearly with a partner and give and receive feedback in a way that you're like always learning and growing and like fine tuning and like calibrating to one another. So that's like a huge skill that most of us don't have. We're shit at communicating in general, let alone communicating about fucking sex, you know?
It's the hardest thing to communicate about, I think.
Yeah. So that's something that I focus on quite a lot. And then it's like, you know, you don't need the techniques. Obviously, knowing about the pleasure zones and how female sexuality kind of works in our arousal processes are best approached is very fucking invaluable. But none of that shit matters if you don't have the ability to like communicate and to create like safety and make her feel incredibly heard and seen and respected and as though you're invested in her well-being and her pleasure, you know? And so it's more about intimacy than like sexuality, because I think like sex is only as good as like how intimate you can kind of be with someone in general. Yeah.
Absolutely. Do you work with lesbian clients at all?
Yeah, sometimes. That's always fun because it's like, you know, it's you'd think, and they do know more about female pleasure for sure.
Sure. Yeah.
But it's funny because, like, you know, we often don't know shit about our own anatomy or vaginas or what we like and what we don't like, and that's like totally like lesbians aren't immune to that either. Like often they're really struggling with a lot of the same stuff, and it's
even
really cool because you can teach them.
There's a lot more shame going on. And a lot of individuals who have lived in that fear of the other for so long. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And they're probably like feeling the pressure of being expected to like be better in bed and know more about pussies because they've got one. But like, no, not necessarily. And so that's cool because you're teaching them about their own bodies and they're also learning about their partner's bodies, and they can kind of fast track the learning because they don't have to contend with like completely different tackle. They're kind of like,
my last thing that I really want to talk with you about is your podcast. So, your podcast, the Labia Lounge, it's little, I love the description. It's to demystify and destigmatize, empower and educate, laugh and get vulnerable while helping dismantle the shame around genitals, pleasure, and being a sexual woman through juicy conversations. It is a judgment and shame-free space that aims to normalize the aspects of being human that we often feel alone in or too afraid to talk about. And we want to reassure you that you are not broken. What a beautiful description of a podcast. Like, that makes me feel like you just hugged me through the computer. Like, I think it is so stunning. And you have so many varied topics. Like, I went through a list of some of your most recent podcasts, and I would love for you to tell my listeners like 1 or 2 recent episodes that you really feel like you were firing on all cylinders and they are like really great episodes for them to go and just like dive right into your podcast. What are some of your most favorite recent episodes?
Oh, it's so hard to choose.
I know. It's like picking a child. I hate when people ask me this question. I don't know why I did this to you.
I mean, just the conversations I get to have on there are just phenomenal, and the kinds of like people I interview are so inspiring. And it's just like, yeah, I feel on such a high after I get out of a really fucking good like podcast recording. But I think recently, there was an amazing one I did on shame-free parenting with Dr. Tina Sellers, who's written a book called Shameless Parenting. And that was all about like, you know, how to bring up children without sexual shame, how to have the talk, at what stages and developmental kind of phases to talk about different things. And that was fucking cool because like I'm super into nipping this shit in the bud and like not continuing on the cycle of like sexual shame and lack of education by like doing it better with our kids. So that one was great. I did re-release an episode that was from like a while back, but I've re-released it in the last few weeks on libido, female libido, called Libido Love with Elena Rossi, who's a female libido specialist. And holy fuck, she's phenomenal. You should get her on your potty. She's like so dope and knows her shit. Like we had some incredible conversations and went into like all this like territory that I didn't expect, but that's like so valuable and controversial as well. So I love her approach.
We love a controversy.
Yeah. So check out the Libido Love episode. I mean, it's tricky. Understanding Men with Alison Armstrong. That was a good episode. There's heaps. Go like have a little scroll, and if you see a title that sort of tickles your dick or blows your hair back, then just like press play, and I guarantee you'll be into it.
Okay, can you please tell us where to find you? Tell us about your website. Tell us about your Instagram, your TikTok, whatever you have. Tell us where to find you.
My website's just like freyagraph.com. And I'm sure you'll put all the links in the show notes and stuff. My Instagram is freyagraph_ the Labia Lounge. And yeah, I mean, those are the main things. You can pretty much, if you just Google the Labia Lounge podcast as well, there's plenty of content online on all the different potty platforms and stuff. And yeah, I think I was going to give you guys $100 off my online course. So I'll give you the discount code to put in your show notes as well. 100 clams off. That might be
what can they expect in the online course? What does this online course consist of?
Yeah. Well, I think it's a great option for people, especially who can't access in-person practitioners, because it's a 3-month online course. You've got lifetime access, so you know you can do it at your own pace. But there's 3 months worth of content. It's pretty much all of my best like teachings and practices and tips and tricks and training videos rolled into the one place. And it's a bit of a step-by-step roadmap to experiencing more pleasure in your body, having, you know, more access to orgasm, feeling more comfortable and confident in your body and in the bedroom, you know, learning how to communicate. And there's a whole heap of stuff in there that teaches you how to do your own self yoni massage and de-armoring to release tension and trauma and like create more pleasure and mastery, you know, in that kind of realm, especially internal vaginal stuff. So I would highly recommend that. Like, I'm super proud of that. It took me like a year to make it, and I put fucking everything into it.
As you should be. You should be proud of that. That's amazing.
Thanks, babe. Yeah. So yeah, and also because like, you know, not everyone like is ready to work one-on-one with a practitioner and talk about this vulnerable shit, or they're not ready to go and have, you know, someone's fingers inside them. So if you are like wanting to work on, you know, stuff like to do with your sexuality and enhance your sex life and heal trauma and shame and whatever, increase pleasure, you know, this is a very safe, accessible, kind of approachable way to tackle it, because you actually can just do it on your own terms in your own home without having to, you know, speak to a practitioner or feel comfortable enough to let someone inside your vagina, you know? So could be a great place to start for a lot of people.
I'm very excited. So we're going to put that code in the show notes. And then when I release the episode, I will absolutely make sure that I put that in our Instagram post as well. absolutely appreciate you being here today, Freya. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We love you.
Such a pleasure.
We had the most flappiest of times with you. So thank you. You can find us at What's Your Position Podcast on Instagram. You can email us at What's Your Position Podcast at gmail.com. You can also call us at 513-6969-SEX. Yes, that's the fucking number. Please call us. Please leave us a message. We'd love to hear from you. We want to thank you so much for being here, Labia Lounge. Please go check out the Labia Lounge wherever you get your podcasts. Make sure you follow, like, and share both of us. And as always, my humans, stay safe, stay kind, and stay sexy.
What's Your Position podcast represents the opinions of Ashley Weller and her guests. The content here should not be taken as medical advice and is intended for education and entertainment purposes only. Views and opinions expressed in the podcast are our own and do not represent that of our places of work. While we make every effort to ensure the information we are sharing is accurate, we welcome any comments, suggestions, or correction of error. Stay safe, stay kind, and stay sexy.
At least we go strong. Darling, you know that we are sold out. This is fading, but the band plays on now. We're crying. So let the velvet roll down. No heroes, villains, one to blame. While wilted roses fill the stage, and the thrill is gone. Our debut was a masterpiece. Our lines we read so perfectly, but the show, it can't go on. We used to have